I'm Michael Sean Harris, and you're listening to Mike's Moment of, a weekly podcast in which I, along with my guests, share our various interests in moments of inspiration, truth, life, technology, culture, and more. I hope you're entertained and informed, and that you feel inspired to join me again and again in my moments of. This is Mike's moment of improv as mindfulness. And today we're speaking with my good friend, Neila Ebanks of eNKompan.E.
Mikey!
What's up, baby?
Hi, my love. How are you?
Yeah, I'm so good. Mm-hmm. Boy, so it's a nice highfalutin title. That's like one of those UA masters titles.
Look, you're not ready for it yet.
No. But, all right, so we're talking about improvisation because that's one of the things that you do.
Yes.
But it's more than just improv as dance. We're talking about, being able to be spontaneous and improvise in your life and and being present and stuff. So all right, let's get started.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, improv. Let's start really though from the dance aspect of it, because I mean that's something that eNKompan.E is all about. I mean that's
completely.
Basically one of the dances that one of the choreographies that you have and the character that you have. This was it, Sister Mary Mark?
Her name is Sister Mitzi Margaret.
Sister Mitzi Margaret.
Sister Mitzi. That's hard to say. Sister Mitzi Margaret. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's a naughty little nun. Not naughty, but she's fun. And
yes.
She's a little ball of energy just bursting to come out.
Yes. She actually was birthed in my preparation for my dance improvisation exam. I think it might have been like 1997. I believe, if I can trace back when I was studying at Elementary College. And because you see, improv is something that, the principles of it can actually be taught. The idea of how to be very, very present and available to what is in the moment for you as a dancer to be able to use spontaneously to create art. That can be taught. Some people have the natural knack for it, but we have a class that deals with that kind of like mindful body creativity. And what happened was I was trying to work with a concept that nobody else was working with in my class. I thought, okay, we're given the task of using props, and I said, okay, I'm gonna use clothes. Okay, so I'm using clothes, and at first it was a towel. It was about some random girl trying to get ready in the morning. Okay, that was really me. But anyway, and all the various things you could do with the towel. So you make the towel become a cape. You make the towel become, a robe. You make the towel become a matador's, cloth, and then you start to say, okay. Yeah, but she's just kind of random running up and down the place. Something is missing. And then I said, maybe not a towel. Let me try some other clothes. So I had a skirt, dig up my little costume thing and found other things. And I said, okay, this might be it. And literally the night before, because we had to keep presenting what we were working on for a couple of weeks before the exam. Mikey, the night before the exam, it's like a light just comes out to me. Whoosh. And I'm like, this is it. Oh, this is going to be so funny. I don't think I've ever been so excited to go into an exam before, because it's like I wanted to see what people would say. That's the brilliance of the kind of spontaneity as well, because I never really planned out the end. I just knew what I wanted to do. And I figured that people would respond to it in a certain kind of way. I set up a structure. It's what you call structured improv, or like you use a score. So within the music, I knew where I needed to be and when I needed to pick up what part of clothes and so on and so forth. And I had run through a couple of possibilities so that if any of those possibilities came to me during the time of the performance, I could just easily draw on one. If a new one came, I would know my skirt well enough, I'd know the music well enough, I know my body well enough, and even maybe be able to read my audience well enough to do a little turn of phrase or something that was true to that particular moment. So there's some element of kind of structuredness to it. What comes after what comes after what. We don't know exactly what physical movement you might be doing to get there. I mean, long story short, I think I got an A. I think so.
Okay.
Because
Wow.
people found it hilarious because the end was a surprise ending. And I was able to bring that back again and again and again and again. It's only like 4 minutes long. But it's interesting because I've tried it in front of different crowds of people, and every single time it works. And it came out of improv. I actually, after improving it for a couple times, I set it because I was able to look on video and feel what works best. But there still is somewhere in there that I have to leave for the moment to speak to me.
Right.
Just not enough to change the narrative or the big finish. But at the very least, just give me a little bit of surprise. I can play with the audience a little bit longer here. I can play with the music a little bit longer here. And it was really amazing to see that I think it was about 10 years later, I was able, 20 years later, what am I saying? Because it was 20 years later, I was able to bring it back at Jamaica Dance Umbrella, and still the same reaction. Out of the moment, so somehow the spirit that it was created in, which was out of the moment, out of the spontaneity of the moment, could resonate 20 years later. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Every iteration of it that you've done, and you've done like other parts of it as well, and I love them all. So how do you really break down the preparation for this? I mean, because you have the props, you have the clothes and things that you're working with. Are you experimenting with how it moves, how it flows, how it stretches?
Definitely. You see, it's all about play, and we have to learn a lot from children. Actually, their plays, their work. If improv is your specialty, particularly, I mean, even if you are a jazz improviser, if you are a dramatic improviser, if you improvise with your paints on your canvas, you have to be willing to play, and the play has to be so exciting to you that it's not even so much about the outcome. It's about the process. It's about what you discover. So what I had to do, and I mean, continue to have to do whenever it is I'm going to improvise something physically, I play with the tools. I play with the props and see what the possibilities are. I play with the body. I play with even the concept sometimes, and sometimes how the concept originally comes to me. I play with so much that I can just toss it away and another one comes up. So I can't hold too long and too hard and fast to anything. But there are rules of play, If I'm working with the fabric, I'm not going to want to try to do the same thing, or let's say a piece of cloth then, or a piece of clothes, I should say. I'm not going to try to make it move like I've seen it move before. I'm not going to try to do what somebody else has done with it. I'm going to actually go into the warp and weft of the fabric that makes those clothes. You understand? And I'm going to try to almost embody it, become one with it, allow it to speak to me. So that kind of play, it's almost, you get into this childlike state where, how children animate everything. Yes. So everything has a voice, the toy over there has a voice, and then that wooden block also has a voice and a name. You have to become like that child so you can see what it is that the prop or the music is offering to you. You're not putting your own consciousness on it. You're almost jumping into it. And I mean, improvising with it could even mean improvising as it. So I may put the cloth down but move like the cloth, in different sort of ways. Okay. Right. So it's really about structured play, low stakes kind of play. If you go into a rehearsal or creation process with the idea that you want already, then you are giving yourself too much pressure. So you have to allow yourself to really be silly. You have to allow yourself to be stupid in front of yourself. You're not doing any editing at this point in time. You're definitely not doing any judgment of yourself. You're just really literally playing to see what you can find. And I do that with anything that I have to improvise. So whether, props are involved or not. Sometimes I just roll a concept in my mind. So my play is mental play. And I'm rolling it and rolling it and realizing, okay, it may not work that way. No, that's not going to work that way, until I actually come up with some sort of structure that I can take into loose structure that I can take into the physical, into a studio, and then continue to play with it and find what is actually there. Yeah.
The thing though with Sister Mitzi Margaret is that it's dance, but it's also dramatic, because you've taken on this character of unknown, which comes with its own set of rules as well. So there's the rules of the props that you're using, but there's also the rules of the character. And because most people are aware of those rules, then you can bend them, you can break them, you can twist them, and you can play with what's expected of unknown and what's not expected. So that brings a lot of comedy, and that's why in your execution of this improv with this character and the props that you've given her, you elicit a lot of laughter as well.
Yes,
from the audience,
and I enjoy it because it is, okay. So when my mother saw it, she said, "That's what all the Catholic education did to you."
They went immaculate,
right? I did, and before that, Stella Maris. So it's So it's almost like, am I taking jabs? No, I have actually always wondered about the humanity underneath the office. Underneath, behind the bows. I have, we had some very strict disciplinarians. We had some nuns who seemed just very miserable, generally speaking, and we had some who were really funny. Really hilarious, and so as I've been doing that particular work with Mitzi Margaret and interrogating Mitzi Margaret's character, as you say, there are all of these kinds of possibilities that make her so layered and interesting. Suppose she really is just this hilarious, quirky person who found themselves in this very serious space. Where is the mirth? Does that mirth have to die? Suppose she's really a little bit subversive on the inside, how does that come out? And so it's been a joy to actually play with that over the past 20 years. I learn something more about her every time I go on the stage, and people react to her in a certain way. Sometimes people laugh at a place that I don't expect them to, and then maybe the next time I do it, I play on that and see if this particular audience will laugh in the same way. But it's interesting to figure out how far I can go, because it bucks religion a little bit, and as you say, expectations of a particular kind of character. So does she go too far? Is that going to be considered obscene, or is that just get playfully how far? And I've been testing it. And I will continue to test it for as long as I can play her. I've actually taught it to other people,
Oh, yes.
Yes, I have, and they've done very well also. So it's been good to see it replicated, or not replicated, manifested, because everybody brings their certain flavor to the characters. But at the end of the day, there's nothing like doing it myself, playing her myself.
Well, I have a suggestion for you, and you can take it or leave it.
Ooh.
But it's a YouTube series called The Life and Times of Sister Mitzi Margaret.
Yes.
And every episode will be a different exploration for you or for someone else. Because you can also include other people in the convent or in the, whatever. So you might feature other characters with different dancers, different, So just a suggestion.
I am ready. I take it. We'll work on it. It is done. Excellent. It is being done. This is the time. This is the time. Good. This is the time. It's always interesting to see what can come out of a moment of spontaneity. But the thing about it is there is a difference between like spontaneity that can lead to something like productive, and then the kind of spontaneity that's maybe just like a throwaway spontaneity. Because interestingly, people assume that improvisation is for beginners, right? So if you don't really know what you do, just put on some music and run around the place, or so with vague sort of suggestions and instructions like that.
That's so strange though, because in music, some of the biggest artists, the most advanced players are the ones who improvise.
Exactly.
And do it the best. So
that's what I wanted to mention, in the fact that in other art forms, it's really the expert who understands their own body enough, and the other kind of tools of dance and the elements of dance enough to be able to play. Because when you don't have a physical vocabulary that you know of, when you're not as aware of every sinew, every muscle, every tendon, your strengths and your weaknesses, you can play. Of course you can play, but what will come out of that play and that process may not be as usable maybe for something like choreography, or as repeatable if you're looking to build a kind of career and a body of work,
Right.
You have to really know, you have to know your body, how it moves, what kinds of things can happen, even though sometimes in improvisation, because spirit is also a part of it. Sometimes in improvisation, your body does something that you've never done before.
Right.
And we come from a Jamaican tradition where improvisation is a big part of the dance movement that we do in our cultural
True.
forms. And so how you play with what is a structured thing, sometimes you don't think about it, your body just moves. And when somebody tells you what you did the next day, you say, really, I never know I could have done that. And you try to do it in a more conscious state and you can't. So there's that aspect also of the improv. But certainly in dance improvisation, it's a good thing if it is the person who is aware of how their body is moving through space, how the body is cutting through space and time, how they can play with that, because what you get out of it is often quite rich, as opposed to somebody just sort of like, what I call faffing about the place, la la la, okay,
Right. Right.
yeah.
But it seems that what could be of benefit as well to someone who is doing improvisation is to have a certain body of knowledge, maybe, and to be able to analyze what they have done
Mm-hmm.
and kind of break it apart and go, okay, this is what I did and this is the effect it had.
Yeah.
And if I want to repeat something like this, I mean, this is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you, as you said, if you're building this body of work, it's not just of doing random things and not having any idea of what you just did or
Right.
what happened. And then it's kind of, as you said, it's a throwaway because you can't write this down or you can't record it somehow. You can't break it down and analyze it and see how it works in a series of things that you did in this improv, and take it apart and say, okay, it works here, but it didn't work there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. And it's interesting that you said body of knowledge, having a body of knowledge, because your body is knowledge. So
Right.
even for example, I'm thinking particularly of like dance hall. Now, dance hall is where improvisation and variations on themes and variations on variations of on themes is just so prolific. I mean,
Right.
somebody comes in and somebody has an idea, a physical idea about responding to a piece of music in a certain way. And before you know it, there are 10 other versions of that. You know what I mean? And these are bodies of knowledge too. So
Right.
in a way, their play space and their lab space is actual dance itself. You know what I mean? So, and then they would be, as natural improvisers, able to figure out what works and what doesn't work. What works along with this rhythm, what gets a good forward from the from the selector as well as from the dancers around me, what doesn't. So it's an interesting idea about what knowledge is. So what are you coming with? Because you don't necessarily have had to study dance to have a good
Right.
knowledge of your body. You know what I mean?
True.
You don't have had to have studied ballet or even yoga, a physical discipline like that, to have a sense of your body in space and time. Bodies of knowledge exist around all everywhere.
But it seems that to even consider that, your that really comes from awareness. It comes from
Yes,
your awareness of self, awareness
definitely,
of yourself
definitely.
in a space,
Mm-hmm.
awareness of how your body is speaking to you and
Mm-hmm.
how you are reacting to what your body did, that kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Again, it's more than just an artistic experience. I
Yes.
mean, because we're talking before, we're talking about mindfulness and about being present, and that's really what it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's you know it's
Mm-hmm.
it's it's being present in this moment, in this space, and making a decision based on what I just did, and then what I just did, and then what I just did, and then
Mm-hmm.
what I just did, and not thinking too far ahead and not getting stuck in what you did 2 minutes before.
Exactly.
uh,
And I
so
mean, that's a life skill. That's a life skill that
it certainly is.
yeah, in these times more than in any other times when the ground seems so shaky.
Mm,
Improvisation is a life skill. We improvise every day when you think about it. You get up in the morning. Some people don't get up on the same side of the bed. You have to get up, but you can get up in a million and one ways, right?
right.
Some people decide to do, drink some water before they brush their teeth, and then maybe one day they decide to do it in a different way. That is an element of improv where you're making a spontaneous choice. You're aware of yourself, you know your options, you're making a spontaneous choice in terms of what you're going to do with your body, and you can decide whether or not that works for the next day. You know,
Right.
so we're always making these kinds of, because improv really is about the choices. It's your awareness of the choices that you can make and how you pivot if you make a choice that's not such a skillful one. That's one of the things that when I'm teaching it too, it's always interesting to remind people, don't panic. When you make a mistake or when you see people rushing to you or you think you've done something that doesn't work for the improvisation, the first rule, don't panic.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, then this is, again, another life skill. You can't judge yourself in the moment for the decision you made.
Not at all.
Because, I mean, sure, you might have had a plan, and then something comes along and you have to make a different plan. You have to detour from that plan, but you can't get hung up on, but I had this plan, and but you can't do that plan anymore because something else just came ahead and you have to make another decision.
And what you often find too, and I really haven't taught it in a while. I really do miss teaching it because you see people blossom in front of your eyes in terms of just how aware of their own awareness they become, and people move into a space where they allow stillness, they allow silence, they allow failure. And I keep the improvisation going. Somebody makes a mistake and you keep it going because you see, beyond that mistake that was made, it's like a fertile ground for opportunity for a million and one things to happen. But if you stay stuck in the moment of cursing yourself or being upset at the person who didn't work according to your plan, then you will never be able to see the possibilities, the yes, and then what? Yes, and then just say yes to the moment. Drama improvisers always speak about yes and,
right, yeah.
As opposed to saying no, as opposed to stopping what somebody is offering to you in the moment. The mistake is an offering.
And in music, sometimes a mistake is a stepping stone to the next thing. It isn't really a mistake. It's like, okay, this is the movement to something else. And the spaces are important. The pauses are important. Music is not just notes; it's silence as well.
Exactly.
So,
exactly. Yeah. Dance is stillness, and dance is movement. Sometimes dance is also sound.
True.
And out of sound you also need silence. So it's I don't know, improvisation is such a life lesson for me, and I think it's the way that I probably move through all of my life, much to the distress of some people who I may interact with.
Tell me what do you mean?
Just meaning in terms of I am agile. My mind is agile. So if I am given a particular thing that needs to be done, I can find a number of ways to do it. But some people may only want one, so we may not agree on that, for example. Or I'm agile and I'm very flexible with time. I think in a previous life I could bend time or something. So I think in this dimension I can bend it. So to some people it may seem like I'm just always late. But what I'm always trying to do is to bend time. I'm always trying to kind of do more things in time, which in and of itself is an improv kind of exercise. You know what I mean? Like, how many things can you get done in these 60 seconds before ta? Unfortunately, you miss a couple of appointments, but it's the way I think I have approached life and living. I mean, there's certain kind of things, for example. Don't get me wrong, because improv is not anything goes. Well, not in the way I know it. So, as I said before, you have what is called a score. And if you are improvising with a number of people, then that score is very, very important, because that score is your agreement with each other. Before that, we used to just call it structured improv. And a friend of mine, Safi Harriot, who had studied in the States, came back with that actual language, because in their improvisation environment, they call it a score. So I've started to call it I started a while back to call it a score. But the score gives you kind of like the game plan, so that you may be working with these kinds of understandings. We're going to use entrances and exits. It's a loose agreement.
So it's like it's just a set of agreements, basically. It's not like notation.
No, it's not. No, it's not like notation. So it's a set of agreements that you deal with before you go into the space. It's like a setup of a task. So you're allowing yourself, because it's within those boundaries that you find the freedom. If you didn't have those kind of strictures and boundaries, you wouldn't know where to start. You wouldn't know what to do. That's actually why a lot of dancers are afraid of improvisation, because they feel like they're going to get stuck in the brain because they don't know what to do. But if you have a set of things giving you that kind of perimeter, then you have space within which to build. You have options. People always say, we need to move out of the box. You're always going to have a box. What we do in improvisation is actually stretch that box and manipulate it and change the shape of it, so that we are all on the same understanding, so that things can flow seamlessly and we can trust one another. And that's why sometimes when really connected people with a score do improvisation, people think it's choreography.
Right.
Because we are so in tune to the moment and to each other, which takes training, by the way. It's not as easy as people think to get everybody in one accord. But it's possible, and I will say to you that it is beautiful. Every time somebody improvises or groups improvise and they use this particular kind of score, and especially when I say no choreography, they are so lifted at the end of it. Even if it wasn't as successful as they thought, they're still lifted because there are other things besides the product. There is the actual energetic connection with each other. There is a trusting of people. There's a trusting of a moment. There's a trusting of silence. It's really, 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 really hard for people to trust silence, and trust stillness, because we are so forced to keep moving. And so, because in this context, let's say I put silence or stillness in the score, they know they must be still. And They get a chance to experience that and to trust each other moving through that score. And they come up on the other side lighter, fresher, more revived.
Let's pivot this into, all right, what's going on now? We're all in quarantine.
Yes,
and so people have had to be at home, and some people can't stand it. Some people, some people are thriving like I am, because I love it. And this is something I've always been doing. So but some people can't stand it. And I mean, that comes back to, I can't, I don't know how to be in the space with myself, by myself, or to be in silence. I mean, some people have taken to, attending DJ parties on Instagram, and I've done that.
Which I have pretty nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice. But it's also good, I think, sometimes to just turn off everything and just sit.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to do, it's a hard thing to. That's one of the things I like yoga for, because yoga allows you to mind your body, right, and to also body your mind.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, I don't, and company doesn't. Some of my colleagues and I don't see the body and mind as two separate things, right?
Okay.
Yoga practitioners, somatic practitioners recognize that your body and your mind are not just connected. Your body and your mind are the same thing. I like to think of every cell in my body being a part of my mind. You know what I mean? My body is a thinking thing. Safi Harriet said that as well. There are books called The Thinking Body also. So this idea of you being one organism or one process, as Emily Conrad said, your body is a process. It's not a finite thing. It's not a machine. There's always this kind of flow of information between the body and the mind. I'm talking as if they're two different things, but they're one thing. And so we haven't necessarily been taught that as a country. I mean, dance is not even in the schools, in the curriculum. So we are already cut off from the intelligent possibilities of your body. We are taught to hate the physical. We are taught to castigate ourselves for physical impulses and desires. We are taught that anything dealing with the brain and thought is higher order, and everything dealing with the body is lower order. And so now I can imagine that when we are in spaces where all we have is our walls or objects or devices and our bodies, it can become very uncomfortable, particularly if you don't have if you haven't experienced that connection between mind and body. Yoga, which is where I started the ramblings, yoga is union. And I think in Sanskrit it means union. And so it really is about unifying that false dichotomy between your body and your mind. So in as much as people think that yoga is about like the flexibility and the splits and the ray and the tape, or on the other side of it, the stillness and only the meditation, that's only part of it. It's really about achieving that kind of unity. The exercises, the asanas, are supposed to help you to breathe through even the most difficult things, the most difficult postures. It's not just to show off on an Instagram at all. It's really to be able to prepare yourself for moments when you need to be able to sit with yourself. So and dance can do that. Sometimes dance doesn't do that because dance has inherited and is changing its own sets of aesthetics and ideas about body, which have been very, very, very detrimental for a lot of young creative people.
Oh, how so?
Because it has pitted one kind of body type against another, whether racially or in terms of size or in terms of just
Oh, you mean like ballet versus
ballet,
folk
right?
or
Yes, or
modern?
even within ballet,
Oh,
the
okay.
kinds of bodies that are expected to be able to deal with ballet and those that can't. I mean, nowadays we are seeing so many more prolific African American and diaspora ballerinas of color,
Right.
and male ballet dancers, principal dancers of color. It is beautiful to see, but best believe it has been a hard fight. Only recently did people start to have dark toned ballet shoes and point shoes and dark toned ballet tights
Right.
and so on for dancers of color. And people even took it into a racialized sort of false scientific thing to say that black bodies are not made for ballet. So it's the body discussion in relation to
Mm-hmm.
dance becomes a little bit more difficult because the way dance has progressed as an industry, has also sought to separate you from your mind, or sought to see your body as a product, to see your body as a machine and not as a process, as not as organic. um, yes, you feel you deal with your body intelligence for sure, but your
Right.
intelligence is almost cut off from I don't know, the spirit of intelligence. Then it's really just like the body as an intelligent thing to be able to do this work, as opposed to the body as an intelligent thing to be able to feel and grow and evolve and get a new shape. You understand? That's more along the lines of yoga and somatic kinds of practices,
Okay.
which I'm really glad to see are more and more prolific. They're really spreading in terms of people's ideas about mindfulness and about the body positivity.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very
Mm-hmm.
important now in this time. So, with all of that said, and not necessarily in the general consciousness, I can imagine that some people are just going, nuts, because this is a perfect opportunity for those people who are very yin, which is very kind of like sit back and receive, like me,
Mm-hmm.
and or introverted, if you want to call it that. It's a nice
Right.
opportunity to continue or to even practice more pausing, more resting. I follow a couple Instagram accounts, particularly the NAP ministry, that speaks about rest as reclamation of self, rest as rebellion, rest again, it's a rebellion against this idea of capitalist productivity. And no, if you have the privilege enough to not have to go and hustle or be on the front lines, you are able to take a pause. I'm
Right.
concerned for the people who are on the front lines, the people who are not able to they don't have no savings and have to go out and work every single day or else the money no make, because then there's still no opportunity for them to be able to rest, pause, connect them body and mind.
And there's also the essential services,
And
quote unquote,
yeah,
people
frontlines essential
who
services.
are just expected to be out there and are pressured,
Yeah,
even more
yeah.
so now than ever before.
You know what's interesting though is like, and I don't want to take the kind of arty standpoint about body mind alone, because everybody has that kind of, especially if you're in a physical sort of discipline, that body mind connection that just clicks when you're in flow, right? You're in that state of flow where you are zoned in. So athletes have it, all kinds of artists have it. I'm
Right.
assuming people who are involved in these frontline essential services also have it, where there's a point in time when your mind and your body are just one thing, and you're in the flow of what it is you're doing. Maybe a surgeon, maybe an RN who is sorting through things going on in front,
Mm-hmm.
who's able to find pause in the chaos enough to give the right kinds of instructions. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to take, and I mean that's an improv moment as well. I don't want to just keep this idea of minding the body and bodying the mind within the context of the arts. This is a life skill that some of our very professionals out there don't even know that they have. The people them down Corey, them have it. The people who are able to navigate through those days, that takes flow. You know what I mean? To come out on the other side breathing, that takes flow. So I think it's there as well, for sure.
It's interesting though. I mean, since I've been on this quarantine thing, and it's really strange because I remember before this, I was finding it so hard to get some of the stuff done that I'd want to get done.
Right.
And then since I've been on quarantine, it's almost like I've given myself a structure, and it wasn't something intentional, really. I gave myself a structure. Okay, I have this opportunity. I want to get these things done.
Yeah.
And even though I don't have a timetable or I don't have a schedule, I'm doing what I can, and I'm resting when I feel I just need to rest. But I'm kind of disciplining my days that in that I get up and I have breakfast, I even do a little exercise or whatever, and then I get to my workstation that I have at home and I'm creating. I mean, it's creative work still, but I'm creating. But I generally don't do like a weekend thing where I say, oh, it's a weekend, I have a break, let me just turn on Netflix or, and binge. I kind of end up, maybe if I'm having lunch or something, I'll turn on a series and watch something and then stop and then go back to work. And it's not until like, when I go, okay, I think I've done enough. And, 6 o'clock, and it feels like I'm working even longer hours, 6, 7 o'clock, I was okay, I've done enough. And then I take the break for the rest of the night and say, okay, let me watch a few series or whatever.
Right.
And it's been really kind of refreshing. And the variety of things that I'm doing has been refreshing, but also the moments where I go, I want to stop now, even if it's for half an hour. And I stop and I might not turn on anything and I might just rest my head or lie back or something. I maybe not sleep, but lie back and just listen to myself breathe. And it's not a structured thing, but it feels good.
I love that. Listen to yourself breathe. I mean, it's and oh boy, one of the best ways to mind your body is to mind your breath. Is to really literally pay attention to that breath, not even to try to control it, just to pay attention to it, just to listen to it, just to allow it to relax so that it goes into your belly and not just in the chest where it stays when people are in a fear sort of state.
Right.
What I was noticing though is that you're describing to me your score, Mikey.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. So here we are, right? We are faced with uncertainty, and out of this uncertainty, you have created a score which gives you the freedom to do things and not do things. And for a number of us, our scores are created for us. So, because we have to get to work at a certain time and we get up at a certain time, then there are particular things that we do for the sake of time in the same way every single time. And, further, the routes that we take to work, how we walk into the building. This is a sort of predetermined score. Yes, we have made choices because we make choices along the way, but by and large, it remains the same. When you pull that from a lot of people to say, okay, you can't go out anymore, some people are really at a loss as to what to do with their time.
Yeah.
Not realizing that the freedom could exist for them now because once again, they have the privilege of being able to work from home. They're not getting laid off, and they don't have to go out and hustle every day to earn because that's a reality. They are not necessarily so sure what to do. But interestingly as well, there is a school of thought that says, because I see a meme going around that if you haven't started a business or gotten some new knowledge or a new skill during this quarantine time, you don't have any discipline. And I don't agree with it because
I don't agree. Yeah, I've seen that meme and it offends me a bit.
And I understand too, because it assumes that we all have the same entry point in this particular situation. We don't. It's and more you're seeing how privilege and access, it impacts how people can respond to and in this sort of situation. So
true.
So if people, because it's traumatic worldwide, no matter what the reasons are, no matter what is behind what and who is behind what. The truth is, the grinding to the halt of the world has been traumatic to many people on a number of different levels, and that kind of trauma sometimes needs to be acknowledged. So even before, some people are able to go into creating a score and making some sense of their days and allowing the rhythm, I like to say finding the rhythm, because everything is like that for me, dance and music, right? So finding the rhythm in the days and recognizing when the rhythm of one day cannot be the next rhythm of the other day, because, different, factors come into play. But some people just need to cry. Some people need to just lie down in bed for 3 days if they're able to, because they can't shut their brain off, or
it's an adjustment. It's a huge adjustment for a lot of people.
It's a huge adjustment. But what I would say is, if at any point in time they feel that they're able to, and the life allows them the space to, they can create a very simple sort of, I don't want to say schedule, just a simple sort of score. Okay, is that score going to be, I'm going to make sure when I get up in the morning that I'll shower. Because the truth is, when these kind of situations come and you end up at home a lot of times, night becomes day, day becomes night, you're working and you're at home, it's all one space. You don't delineate, and because you don't delineate, you feel fuzzy. Once you start to create a score, you say, okay, I'm going to make sure that I'm up by 10 o'clock. I mean, if you have that luxury, right? And when I get up, I'm going to stretch a little bit. Or maybe I won't stretch, but I'm going to just take some time. I won't jump up. And then maybe I will make sure I shower before 12. So it's not like I'm going to shower at 11:30.
Right.
I'm going to cleanse myself with some water before 12 o'clock. I'm going to make sure I go out into the sun sometime in the afternoon. So it's a loose sort of thing, maybe made up of the kinds of things that ground you, make you feel connected somehow.
Right.
So that we don't end up just dropping into a social media loop, or, kind of, and it's not even about being productive. It's just about kind of trying to find rhythm and balance again, because we're all on this shifting ground.
And that's part of the reason that, I mean, that I think I guess in the beginning unconsciously started to create this structure. I mean, I remember when they said, you have to quarantine. I traveled and I came back, and and my sister advised, and I did it as well. I self-quarantined for 14 days. And as I did it, I mean, as the first day of the 14 came, I was like, you know what? I mean, my favorite thing to do in the morning before I leave is shower, because it resets everything for me. So I said, I'm gonna have to make sure I'm just gonna shower every day and put on clean, fresh clothes every day, because some people don't,
Yeah.
And but it makes me feel, and because I had an intention as well of getting some stuff done, and I don't feel like I'm ready to do stuff unless I've done that reset.
Got you.
You know what I mean? So that's what I did, and I started doing that. And then I said, but you know what? I'm not moving around as much as I used to. And for somebody like me, that's not good. So so I said, all right. So I have this, echo thing, and so I mean, Alexa became an assistant. I mean, I have Siri on the phone and she's an assistant, but Alexa became the party assistant. So Alexa I would say, play, music from the 80s or whatever. And so as I got up, like even before that, I turned on the light or, open a window, I would just yell to Alexa, play this or whatever. And I get up and I start dancing in the dark.
Yes!
For 20 minutes or whatever. And then time to shower, time to have breakfast or whatever.
Yeah.
So, but then we have, we both have students, and I have some, apart from students, I have some people who are, on social media who I don't necessarily know personally, but it's almost as if they're mentees in a way. And so the students are out of sorts. A lot of them are out of sorts because their schedule went to hell. Their thing of where they'd see each other and, be able to hang out and that kind of stuff. Just it was gone. So I had them in WhatsApp groups, and I'd say, okay, you try and get some work done, but you have to adjust. So if you need to sit down or go outside and stare at the wall or whatever, do that. But and if you need, send me a message, send me a voice note, whatever. And just before we started recording this, there's another guy on Instagram who was like, how's it been going? And he's like, well, I tried doing this and this and this, but nothing worked. And it's like, and I told him the stuff I'd been doing. He says, wow, I'm really jealous of you. I said, no, but don't be jealous of me. I mean, just try and strike a balance. And if you need to to relax, relax.
That's it.
I said it's not rocket science and it's not life and death. Nobody's gonna die because you didn't produce all these things.
Right. It's the grind is gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here is another little tidbit, an eNKompan tidbit. You release the grind, or release the grinding, and get to grounding.
That's
what
nice.
I mean? Release the grinding and get to grounding. It's hard to release the grinding because we are so tied up with this idea of productivity equaling worth and value. And I mean,
Yes.
it probably goes beyond the days of enslavement, but I'm sure that is a huge impact on our psyche. And of course, all of that is in our DNA in terms of this idea that you are only worthy and valuable of existing and existing well if you are overworking.
Right.
And grinding and hustling and hustling. I'm not saying people must not be entrepreneurial and ambitious. I'm not saying that people must not be achievement oriented, which is very important. But when that takes over your own sense of self, when that is you're doing that at the exclusion of other things, including health and that sort of stuff, you need to ground yourself. And because the world has grown to a particular kind of halt that nobody thought would have been possible, if you can, it's scary, but it's a good time to really sort of take note and find practices that help to ground you. I mean, every time I talk about grounding, grounding yourself, people look at you kind of funny because it sounds all like, oh, airy fairy. But the truth of the matter is, we all need to be grounded. We all need to be, if not, we're flying all over the place.
Right.
We're here and there like leaves in the wind.
And there's different ways of finding that grounding. I mean, it could be by yourself because some people can do that. A few days ago, some friends, the Mij and Nyanda and Carl, and a couple other people said, okay, let's have a Zoom hangout, get your wine, and let's meet at 6:30.
Nice.
And
yes.
we did.
Yeah.
And we were online, we were playing music for each other and talking about different things for, like 2 hours or something.
Yeah. and
it made a difference.
Your friend groups can ground you. Your family can ground you. I am in isolation with my parents, which is actually pretty good because I don't know how I would deal with it in total isolation if I was living by myself once again, because you get a sense of resonance because somebody else hears what you have to say.
Yeah.
And as you said, we have technology that can connect you to some of the most grounding people across the world. I mean, what's happening to know if you have the benefit of being able to access technology on the internet and you have the time, there are a lot of people offering good grounding practices through teleconferencing apps. So, there's Nikisha Breeze was offering a class. I think she's on Instagram as Nikisha Breeze in resilience, movement and breath for resilience.
Oh, wow.
There are a number of people, including True Self Center right here in Jamaica, that's offering online yoga classes, different kinds of yoga, different forms of yoga. Yoga Angels is also offering a similar thing. So there's a way in which opportunities to ground yourself can come through the same sort of communication portal that you would be using for work.
Right.
Some people go into, one of the best ways to ground yourself, honestly, is, as you say, to listen to your breath, to pay attention to your breath, for even 10 slow breaths deep into your belly, not into your chest. That helps to actually remind you of who you are. It takes you out of your head right back into your body again, because the head will just roll around with thoughts of worry. So that's one of the most primal things anybody can do to get themselves back into a space of calm when they feel like them head arise. You know what I mean? But certain people, interesting.
And pets.
Pets are the most wonderful givers. They ground.
I'm quarantined. My father is here and I am here, and we're both kind of introverts. Like I'm in my area and he's usually in his area, and the most we'll say is, everything all right? Yeah, man, everything's good, and that and that's it. And we know that we're cool. But he has. Well, I'm saying he, but it's really the two of us. We have this stray dog who's no longer a stray, but the dog doesn't have a name. He calls the dog dog, and
a dog named Dog.
Yeah, but we buy food for her, and I have treats. I have a treat every morning. I go down, and she meets me at the door, and she comes for it. And so some of the grounding. Sometimes when I've been in this little room working on creative stuff by myself for long enough, and let me go outside, get some fresh air, and I bring a treat for Dog, and she comes and takes it, and then she comes back and I pet her, and she rolls over and I rub her her belly and stuff, but that's grounding too.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
because you kind of not thinking about you're thinking about this pet now. You've shifted your focus to something else.
Right.
You know,
And energetically, I mean, pets are givers.
yes,
They will balance your energy out, especially if you have a loving relationship with them. I mean, in all of this, honestly, I'm concerned about people who, especially because we're in like a curfew sort of situation, and
right,
movement is even more restricted. There are people who don't even have the benefit of having an isolated space. How does somebody in a tenement yard situation or a family yard situation, a yard where don't
right,
really have anything more than maybe the wall them, the small wall
right. Yeah.
them, how does somebody find the space and time and even interest in grounding?
True,
Because for them,
true.
what grounds them is being able to be on the road, sit and bridging, play some domino, buy a
Right,
Guinness. That gives them their sense of, because grounding is really a sense of yourself, and
right.
that's what gives them their sense of self. So when I mean, unnecessarily so, cut people's restrictions, some people are going to be affected more than others. Those who are in the inner city are greatly affected, because when you can't get to the thing that grounds you, not to say something else can't do it, but the thing that
Right.
will ground you and make you feel supported, and that sense of belonging and able and powerful, when you can't do that and you don't have any access to anything else, it's rough. Plus, you're not going to necessarily have access to earning money the next day either.
Right.
It's a rough kind of situation.
And someone has brought up the thing of people who might be in abusive relationships who
Uh-huh.
would get a break if they went to work, or if
Right.
the partner went to work or whatever, but no, they're
Right.
stuck
It's
with
I
each
mean,
other.
it's we have, I mean, some people are thinking about ways in which codes can be created for people to be able to reach out,
Okay.
unbeknownst to an abuser. I've seen some stuff about that on social media, which is good. But it's just one thing for sure, it shows you that the inequities in the ways that people have to live, or maybe
Right.
have been forced to live, are even more glaring at this point in time. And it's sometimes it's hard to pivot out of something like that. I can easily abstract it and say, well, you can improvise around it. Sometimes there's no way to improvise around it. It's just the improvisation is the only way
Right.
through it is through, which is hard,
Yeah.
which is hard to think about.
Yeah. I mean, I've also even thought, because the churches have kind of been shut down as well.
Mhm.
Everybody's gone online with church,
Mhm.
but some people, that's their only that's their only interaction with people on a Sundays when they go to church.
Yep.
So in a sense, it's been taken away from them as well. Some
Mhm.
older people and even some younger people who are just, let's say, socially challenged or whatever. But that's the time when they get to see people
Mhm.
and interact with people, and get a hug, feel love, but you can't even hug nobody anymore.
Oh, and I mean,
Yeah.
there are two things that came to me with that. One, in terms of church. So my wonderful elders here who I live with, have had to become relatively tech savvy within the last 3 weeks,
A
because
lot of people
yeah,
have.
yeah, because that same kind of connection that they need, whether it is one who needs to hear the Eucharist, and the
Hmm.
Agnus Dei, and the other one who needs to see and hear his church members at prayer meeting.
Right.
We've had to figure out very quickly, and they've had to level up very, very quickly in terms of using the technology to be able to get that kind of grounding. And I feel the difference in them when they're not able to connect, as opposed to when after they have been able to go to virtual church.
Right.
So
Right.
it's particularly for our older members. What is it? Or
Yes.
members of society, what is it doing for them? But I
Yeah.
mean, it's some people may think that talking about the skill of improvisation is an abstract thing, or it's a luxury. Right now we need to deal with brass tacks. We need to come down. We need
Mhm.
to get. But the thing about improv is that it privileges your imagination. And to be honest with you, if you lose your imagination, you are lost. Your imagination is needed to come out of some kind of situation like this on the upside. And
And on a more spiritual level, I mean, your imagination is what creates your reality. I mean,
exactly, exactly. So it is imagination that creates what you are going to experience. And yeah, I mean, I could go so many places with this, because even in terms of this idea of STEM, we always talk about, no, it needs to be STEAM. The arts have to be at the middle of it because everything needs to have that imagination within it, animating it, creating the reality within which all of these other things can operate. So in as much as improvisation, as I'm speaking about, it might seem irreferent to some people, it really is, it gives you a breath of opportunity to say, oh, maybe I can have a new thought about this circumstance. Maybe I can have just maybe, possibly I can skirt around the panic of the circumstance somehow. Maybe I can try to walk backwards into my house instead of walk forwards into my house. Maybe just that shift, that one different thing that I do might shift the way that I am able to perceive this circumstance in this moment, Improvisation is life skills, man. It's life skills without a doubt.
Definitely. Well, I'd love to know how a mathematician improvises. I'm sure it exists, and I have a cousin who's doing his PhD in math. Maybe I should ask him.
But I can imagine, because you have to try a number of solutions. That's improv, Every solution that you try that doesn't work, that's improv. Every time you try a formula I used to love algebra. I didn't do very well in 11 math, but I did love it though. Because you try so many things, so many possibilities, so many, to arrive at the solution. When you get the solution, you feel good, but the process was also really good. What it does to your brain is also good. That's improvisation.
Right.
Because the mathematician he may be working with formulae that he or she knows from before, right? Which is the score, but you don't know which one is going to work for the situation. So you have to try them out and see, and then figure out which one will work, and then you find that harmony, and you get that solution.
But there again is a life skills, because it's again, it's not the end, but it's the process. So the failure is just part of the process, and it's part of your your journey to the thing that will succeed eventually.
In Jamaica we have this saying, you have to turn your hand and make fashion, and that's basically what improvisation is too,
Oh, definitely.
Necessity, the mother of invention. You don't have certain things, but you need to get something done. You improvise, you make it work. Sometimes in those situations, though, when you keep improvising to make something work, then you never actually get the actual solution, the correct thing that needs to be done. So you kind of just bitch up a thing until, and then everything comes down. But
sometimes it feels that we get, like in our context, in the Jamaican context, sometimes we get stuck on the marvel of this Tony Hand McFashion thing.
Exactly.
And we don't move past this. Because yes, it's great to have as a skill, but that is not the be all and end all of it.
You can to take for example, if you're in the field as a surgeon, somebody gets shot and you don't have a scalpel. You're going to use a sharp object, but if you have means to get a scalpel if you're in the
operating theater, I don't want to use a bone.
Yes, you're going to ask for what you need because it exists. What has happened is, and particularly in the arts, we are so good at improvising as in terms of production. We're so good at making something out of nothing. We are so good at turning our hand and making the most amazing fashion that people will say to you, oh, you never really need what you said you needed anyway, because you made it work and it was really nice. Yay. And then when you're really asking for what you actually need, you're not listened to. And in fact, some of us ourselves do it to ourselves, so we do it to each other. We give people minimum resources and expect the maximum result.
You see it all the time.
You can do it. Don't mean that you have to do it if you actually have. Hell, if you have theatre lights, unless you're trying to do something conceptual, what are you going to use flashlight for?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Niels,
yes, my
darling. It sounds like wait, this was really cool.
I enjoyed it so much.
Thank you so much, my darling.
Yes, my dear.
Yes, this was fun. Well, continue on your score with the quarantine, and and daily I'm going to be mixing mine up every day.
Which is what it is.